In 2014, Communities in Action and Faith coordinated the ballot initiative that put a minimum wage increase ordinance before the Las Cruces City Council and eventually into law. But Café Executive Director Sarah Nolan says since the increase went into effect in January, there have been more than 100 reports of employers not complying with the new law. Violations include withholding the full minimum wage, the higher tipped wage, delaying the increase, or cutting workers' hours while requiring the same amount of work.
We were getting phone calls, a lot of our leaders out in the field when they would go and eat out, or people that knew that they were part of our campaign, they would go to them and tell them these stories. We heard it through our congregations, some of our workers.
But just how valid the more than 100 claims of wage theft really are may never be discovered. Nolan says none of the affected workers feel comfortable discussing the cases or taking them any further for fear of losing hours or their jobs completely.
Many of these families, this is their only source of income. This is the thing, this job is keeping them from being on government assistance or being completely unemployed as a family.
Albuquerque and Santa Fe both impose criminal and financial penalties on employers that break their minimum wage laws. But Las Cruces leaves it up to the minimum wage worker to take the violating employer to district court. Nolan says the city should enforce the law just like it does many others.
I'm not required to enforce other people when other people aren't wearing a seatbelt or other people are like texting or on the phone while they're driving. It's not my job to go to the city attorney or to go to local law enforcement and make them enforce their own laws. That's the job of the police, that's the job of the city attorney. And yet in this case, why is there a separation and what's the difference that then now places all the responsibility and all the burden on the worker to enforce the law about a wage, about wages that help them make ends meet? That makes no sense to me. And I would like to see an explanation about, well, how does enforcement work then?
Earlier in the year, AmberCare, a personal in-home care provider operating in Las Cruces, was withholding the full minimum wage from employees for the hours they were serving clients outside the city limits. Instead of receiving $8.40 an hour, they were only getting $8. In an interview earlier in the year, City Manager Robert Garza said the company was able to be brought into wage compliance once they were put on notice.
They looked at it and said, you know, it's a lot easier for us to just pay the same wage. And so compliance, I mean, that's what we strive for.
Garza said he's not sure a criminal enforcement measure is even necessary, but AmberCare told KRWG earlier this year they won't pay their workers back wages. The company refused further comment for this story. Former Doñana County Commissioner Oscar Vasquez Butler wrote the Las Cruces Sun News to bring AmberCare's wage violation to light. He says the workers that initially reached out to him have gone silent.
That's what's troubling, because the last communication I had with one individual is they were going to meet with me and kind of share with me what's been going on within the AmberCare work environment since our letter came out, since the concern came out regarding the inequity in pay. And I called and made a follow-up call and never returned the call. Same with the other employees. They just don't want to get involved anymore. And I think that kind of fear or threat or whatever it is, that there's this cloud over them.
Vasquez Butler says without a municipal criminal enforcement measure, the city is leaving low-wage workers in a position where they have to take their employers to court. Sarah Nolan says low-wage workers would speak out about wage violations if they felt protected and employers faced real penalties, like the fines and jail time required in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Las Cruces City Councillor Nathan Small says he will be bringing enforcement amendments to the City Council. Whether those amendments pass or not, Small says it will bring the wage theft and other minimum wage issues out of the shadows.
We need to provide the space within the City Council for employees or these stories to make sure and come before the council and the community, right? So we need to find a way to take what's anecdotal and to discuss that and to get that out into the public sphere. While protecting folks from retribution or other things.
Small says an upcoming work session will address more than an enforcement measure for the minimum wage. He says it will also allow businesses to discuss how they're preparing for the additional wage increases in 2017 and 2019. City Manager Robert Garza tells KRWG News that because of the city's charter, voters would have to approve any enforcement measure affecting the minimum wage law. For KRWG, I'm Simon Thompson.